new Simplified Review Framework going to change the way that grants are written and reviewed. So NIH says that this only affects the review process for research project grants, but I personally think it would be a big mistake not to change the way that you write your research project grants to respond to these new scoring criteria. So that is what we are talking about today. If you are new around here, my name is Sarah Dobson. I am a research grant consultant, and my team and I help early career researchers get funded at NIH. So if you don't know anything about the new NIH Simplified Review Framework, I did a whole video on it last week or a couple weeks ago. You can check that out just to kind of get up to speed on what it is and why it's being implemented. Today, we are going to talk a little bit more about the new 3-factor scoring system and how that is going to influence how these grants are reviewed and how, in my view, you should change how you write the grants. So, number one, let's talk about what those 3 factors are and how to think about them. So factor 1 is about the importance of the research. And this factor combines significance and innovation. And the major question that reviewers are going to be asking themselves kind of at a very high level is, should this research be done? And so unlike the old system where you had a separate score for significance and a separate score for innovation, those are now being combined into a single factor 1 score. And although we don't have full information yet about how NIH is instructing reviewers to assess factor 1 and how to think about it in terms of the sort of scoring rubric and what you'll see on a summary statement, what we do know already is that what reviewers are likely going to be asked to do is speak to the major score driving factors or elements within factor 1. So if we're talking about significance and innovation, what you'll see in a new summary statement or a new sort of scoring rubric is you'll have major score driving elements for significance and innovation. And the way that you would notice this is similar to how it used to be in terms of strengths and weaknesses, right? And so you'll still see strengths and weaknesses, but they'll be more in line with what the major score drivers under significance and innovation together would look like for factor 1. And the other piece I want to point out about factor 1 and the way that NIH is instructing reviewers and instructing applicants to write to these criteria, I think the biggest change that I have noticed is in the way that NIH is asking us to consider innovation. So under the old system, the way that we talked about innovation was, is this innovative or not? Is this creating a change in clinical practice paradigms or research paradigms? And how big a deal is it that this research is novel, right? But under the new Simplified Review Framework, the question isn't, is this innovative or not? It's, how important is innovation to the undertaking of this research? So in other words, how important is this that this work is innovative? Do we need to do this work even if it isn't innovative? And so that would be one of the pieces that you would have to speak to as an applicant is, okay, sure, maybe my grant or maybe my research idea is not particularly innovative, but here's why it's important that we do this research anyway. So there's a lot more room for that, I think, under the new system, even though that's something that we have been instructing our PIs, the clients we work with for years and years, is to address that question directly. But I think now that it's being more sort of openly acknowledged at NIH, that whether something is innovative or not is not really the question. It's how important is innovation to the reason that we do this work in the first place. Okay, so that's factor one. Importance of the research and significance and innovation kind of fall both under that factor. Factor two is about rigor and feasibility, and this is all about your approach section. And I think one of the major changes that we are seeing here is in NIH's instructions on how to think about rigor. That is something that to me is very new in how applicants are being instructed, and presumably how reviewers are being instructed to assess. Although again, we know that this is something that reviewers have been assessing for a really long time, but it's been sort of nebulous in terms of how that's actually happening, and the criteria haven't been quite so explicit. And so in this new simplified review framework, there are a series of prompts that you can respond to as an applicant more directly, that will allow you to really lay out your argument for the rigor and reproducibility of the research that you're proposing. And to me, this is a really positive change because it's just making it so much more clear what you as an applicant need to do to describe the rigor and reproducibility of your work. And it makes it a lot more clear, I think, for reviewers in terms of how they need to assess the rigor element in a more structured way. Feasibility is the other element of factor two. And that's really about, can this project be done on time and on budget? And what might prevent that from happening? And so that piece is a bit more pragmatic, but it's also something that you have to speak to as an applicant. And again, this is another one of those pieces that was sort of implicit in your description of the approach. But I think, again, there are opportunities to make that more explicit in the work that you, or in the application that you are submitting. So factor three is expertise and resources. And what's interesting about this factor is, unlike the first two, factor one, factor two, which are both scored on a 1 to 9 scale, factor three doesn't get a score. It's just assessed as adequate, as in the expertise and resources required for this project are adequate, or they need more. More resources, more expertise is required. In other words, it's sort of like adequate or inadequate. And reviewers are asked to provide commentary if they deem factor three to be not up to standard. And so in an ideal scenario, if that factor is deemed, not up to standard, you would get more information in the commentary section about what's missing, what needs to be improved. But again, we'll just have to wait and see how this actually plays out in the review process. I will say I have some misgivings about this. I will say I have some misgivings in general about the simplified review framework and the impact it's going to have on applicants. I do believe this will simplify things for reviewers a great deal, but what we don't yet know is whether this will benefit applicants. It's definitely going to benefit reviewers, but again, we just don't know yet how it's going to impact applicants, and I have concerns that it is going to make it harder for applicants to understand what they need to address to improve their application for next time. I hope I'm wrong about that, but again, we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. So those are the three factors that are part of the new NIH Simplified Review Framework. There's lots more to learn and understand about how to implement changes to your application as an applicant, what you need to do to be more responsive to these changes. And I'm actually going to be covering that in an upcoming webinar on October 24th. So if you would like to attend that webinar, or if you can't attend and you'd like to catch a recording, you can sign up at the link in the video description. I'm going to cover what the changes are and how you can be responsive to them in a way that's going to make your application more competitive. So if you're interested in going much deeper than we're going in any one of these videos here, then definitely make sure that you sign up